today, we also have some genius from avowed, highly renowned atheist, Richard Dawkins.
Yeah, Dawkins is this guy that everybody on the left thinks is ultra smart, and he comes out with just wonderful points. Such as this, talking to Playboy, which, by the way, actually probably has a little more credibility than the New York Times on a day-to-day basis. They ask him this. Playboy asks him this question. You've described yourself as a tooth fairy agnostic. What is that? Dawkins. Rather than say he's an atheist, a friend of mine says, I'm a tooth fairy agnostic, meaning he can't disprove God, but thinks God is about as likely as the tooth fairy. And Playboy asks, so you don't completely rule out the idea of a supreme being? Critics see that as leaving an opening. And Dawkins replies, you can think so if you think there's an opening for the tooth fairy. Now, what's interesting about that is you can disprove the tooth fairy. There's a well-known process that I will not go into extreme detail, as some of our listeners may be children. But there's a process in which the tooth turns into the quarter under the pillow. This process is known to many adults. So that process can be proved to be very much of this earth.
What if you're just a bad person and the tooth fairy doesn't want to visit you? You've proven nothing, have you? Except that you're a bad person.
Well, very well might be true.
Isn't there a nice and naughty list for the tooth fairy too, as well as Santa Claus?
I don't know.
Is there? Maybe there's not. I don't know.
We're going to have to get a real scientist like Dawkins to decipher that, I suppose.
Because he's got some sheer genius going for him.
He does, and that's the thing. People will say to atheists, hey, well, you can't disprove it, can you? And they, of course, can't, so they come up with arguments like that, such as the tooth fairy. But it always comes down to one thing, which is, all right, you can talk about evolution, you can talk about how things evolved, you can talk about how things developed in the world, but how did all that crap start? What started that process? And there's never an answer to that. Never.
Well, the Big Bang started it all.
Right, of course, but what started that? And it's a never-ending series of questions of what started. It's like you're a little kid asking you why over and over and over again. And there's never an answer to it. You're never going to get to the beginning of that, because the only place you can go is God. And atheists, when they are forced into that corner, have to get to that point that they don't know. Unless you're Richard Dawkins, who does have an interesting out. This comes from his documentary with the Ben Stein documentary, Expelled, from a few years ago. One of my favorite moments in any documentary of all time, talking to Richard Dawkins, the atheist.
What do you think is the possibility that intelligent design might turn out to be the answer to some issues in genetics or in evolution?
It could come about in the following way. It could be that at some earlier time, somewhere in the universe, a civilization evolved by probably some kind of Darwinian means to a very, very high level of technology and designed a form of life that they seeded onto perhaps this planet.
Wait. So it could be that aliens developed and planted the seed that developed here.
Right. So obviously, belief in God is crazy.
Ridiculous.
But if you believe in aliens creating a form of life and seeding it here on Earth, planting it like corn, and for us to grow into the society that we've become, that's sensible. That is his legitimate explanation.
So there's
for life on Earth.
There are universal farmers or galaxy farmers.
Okay. Yes, galaxy.
Who go around the galaxy and they just plant crops. And those crops just happen to be humans.
Right. That's how we got here.
At least, right? Because we weren't humans that they planted. They planted the seed. It started to grow into some sort of life. And then it evolved.
Right. My favorite part of this is not the fact that he has to admit that intelligent design is a possibility. It's not the fact that he believes that it must have been aliens creating life and planting it here. My favorite part of all of this is, even if what his scenario is 100% accurate, it still asks the question, where did that civilization come from?
Right.
He still hasn't answered the question.
Figured it out.
He still has nothing. This is a guy who's so sure that he is going to talk about the evolution of the alien race, And he's still sure that's Darwinian. Like, they can't even break the Darwinian rules in other universes and galaxies. But here, luckily, he can describe that and still be taken seriously. I mean, he's still the head of the atheist cabal, if you will. He's still the guy. When you talk about atheists and someone who's going to argue it in the best way, you go to Richard Dawkins. He's not just some crappy guy that you found on the atheist side so you can make your side of the argument look good. He is the preeminent guy. He is the spokesperson that atheists would want. And his answer to these questions is that aliens created life and seeded it on Earth. I mean, that is awesome. It is that interview.
That's great.
If you've never seen that, by the way, and
I haven't.
It's Ben Stein.
I still haven't seen it. I got to see it.
It's Ben Stein, obviously an economist, and he was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, actor. Really smart guy. He's talking about evolution, and I'll be honest with you, evolution is not one of my areas of interest as far as politics go. But the documentary is done very well, and a couple of great moments. That one. And that entire interview is fascinating with Richard Dawkins because he really answers the questions. He's not afraid, which is a good thing. You really learn about what he talks about. And other moments in there where he's talking about just the sadness of some of these people who've come to this conclusion that there's nothing else out there and therefore have created this incredible amount of depression internally. That there's nothing else really to live for. This is just a meaningless existence on this earth. It really is sad. And you go back, and they also go into the fact that really delve into the words of some of Nazi leadership and everything else, who really blamed, based a lot of their philosophies on things, around what. Evolution and all those teachings. They believed it so hardcore, they tried to execute it in real time, which is really their scientific basis for the Holocaust was based on this. I mean, so, and they, this is in their own words. It's really, obviously you can't blame, atheists for that. I mean, that's just them being psychotic. But still, it gave them a scientific basis to attempt these things. And, it really is scary. It's very well done, and it's worth watching.